We would like to ask you to remain standing for the national anthem, Negaraku. Thank you, and please be seated. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning. Yang Berhormat Datuk Sri Idris Yusof, Minister of Higher Education. Yang Berhormat Datuk Dr. Mary Yap Keng Ching, Deputy Minister of Higher Education. Yang berbahagia Tan Sri Dr. Nurul Ainur Muhammad Nur, Secretary General, Ministry of Higher Education, who is also the moderator for today's forum. Yang berbahagia Datuk Nik Ali Mat Yunus, Deputy Secretary General, Development. Yang berbahagia Datuk Kamil Muhammad, Deputy Secretary General, Management. Yang berbahagia Datin Paduka Insinyur Dr. Siti Hamisah Tafsir, Director General of Higher Education. Dr. Muhammad Nur Azman bin Hassan, Deputy Director General of Higher Education. Our panelists for today, Professor Sohail Inayatullah, Professor at Tam Kang University Taipei, Adjunct Professor at the University of the Sunshine Coast, and also Associate Transcend Peace University. Tan Sri, Datuk Sri, Datuk, Datin, Professor, Doctor, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to seminar series on University of the Future, Fourth Industrial Revolution. Let's start with Doa recitation, and let's call upon Mr. Muhammad Nazirul Mubin Abdul Rahman to lead the Doa.
الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. الحمد لله. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Ya Allah, the most gracious and most merciful, we express our gratitude to you for allowing us to attend this meaningful program, University of the Future Seminar Series, Fourth Industrial Revolution. Oh Allah, make the day that we have gone through, starting with your mercy, continue with your blessing, and ending with your forgiveness. Ya Allah, Ya Arhamar Rahimin, with your blessing, strengthen us as our leader will display the spirit of revolutionary to move forward in a single direction on the development of higher education and its excellence to achieve Transformasi Nasional 2050. Ya Allah, Ya Dhal Judi wal Karam, make our effort today a fruitful one, lead to the contribution to the development of our country, and strengthen the quality of our higher education system as our motto, soaring upwards, be the spirit of our success. Ya Allah, Ya Wasi'al Maghfirah, make our gathering here a blessed occasion, and our dispersion thereafter guided and protected, and make not any among us wretched or deprived. Make easy for us every difficult thing with your special favor and kindness, for it is easy for you to make every difficult thing easy. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين آمين يا رب العالمين.
Amin, Amin, Ya Rabbal Alamin. Thank you, Mr. Nazirul. Ladies and gentlemen, the fourth industrial revolution urges us to think creatively about the manufacturing process, value chain, distribution, and customer service processes. In the meanwhile, the future of education emphasizes the immense need to look beyond these areas and strategically utilize the Internet of Things to prepare the coming workforce for the challenges ahead. And in order for higher education to deliver future generation with the right sets of skill and knowledge, an imperative question has to be asked regarding how higher education institute would be affected by the fourth industrial revolution and how the delivery of education will be transformed. And with that, without further ado, please welcome Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Dr. Nurul Ainur, the moderator, and our panelists, Professor Sohail Inayatullah, to the stage and to start the forum on fourth industrial revolution.
Thank you, pengacara majlis. A good crowd this morning. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good morning to all. Welcome to our Seminar University of the Future, number 2, stroke 2017, Fourth Industrial Revolution. And on this, for your information, Dr. Sohail, that today we have our audience, they are from the public and private universities. We have academicians here, public or rather policymakers, and we also have polytechnics, community colleges, and also our universities. So they are all together to listen to what you have to say. So let me go straight to your biography. Don't be surprised, he's not new to Kuala Lumpur. According to him, he has been here for the past, 40, 50 times in Kuala Lumpur, and there are many familiar faces here in this room. He was actually educated in ISKL, International School Kuala Lumpur, for 2 years. At that point of time, the father was working at APDC. And after that, he went to Hawaii, and straight away, he did his bachelor degree until his PhD. For 20 years, he has or had been living in Hawaii. And now, he's a political scientist at Tamkang University, Taipei, also UNESCO Chair in Future Studies. Besides that, he's also the associate at the Melbourne Business School, University of Melbourne, and adjunct professor at the University of the Sunshine Coast, Australia. For the past 3 years, Professor Sohail has addressed or conducted foresight workshops for the government of South Korea, the Knowledge Park, Office of the Prime Minister, Government of Thailand, World Vision International Geneva and London, Council for Scientific and Industrial Research South Africa, Ministry of Science, Technology, Innovation, Musti, and that was when I was the Sekjen of Musti. He was there, and we invited him for a power breakfast. And it was was it a powerful one at that time? You think so? The food was great, that's about it, yes, to say. And also, sorry? Thank you. I don't think your mic is on. Is it on? You see it on?
It's on now.
All right, thank you. And the Office of the Prime Minister, Government of Singapore, Office of the President, Government of South Korea, Office of the Prime Minister, Government of Canada. I think I've impressed them with your CV.
Oops, thank you.
And for today, Professor Sohal will do a presentation for 1.5 hours, and followed by Q&A session for 30 minutes. And in this regard, he will speak on the fourth industrial revolution and beyond, creating narratives, scenarios, and strategies for Malaysian higher education. And in this aspect too, I believe that in this regard, the first, second, and third industrial revolution, we see a more positive aspect of ecosystem. We are looking at the growth in the economic and also the job sectors. But with regard to the fourth industrial revolution, for example, there is a variable of, or rather the element of fear in terms of job losses. And why is it different to the first, second, and third industrial revolution? That might be a discussion with regard to your talk today. And I see, besides the fear of job losses, you have disruptive ecosystem.
Yes.
Why does it exist? If possible, Professor Sohal, if you can look at the macro perspective and also the micro perspective in the context of Malaysia, for example. The macro perspective, you're looking at the regional aspect, competitiveness, productivity, and also workforce. With regard to especially the ASEAN region, because we are also competing in terms of among the ASEAN member states. And with regard to the micro perspective, maybe you can look into the Malaysia in terms of being an economic power in the future. Thank you very much. On that,
Thank you.
Professor, over to you.
Thanks so much. Stand there with
Big hand for Professor Sohal.
Thanks so much. Clicker. Clicker for PowerPoint. So as you're looking for a clicker, let me pretend they're my clickers. Once you think about novelty, it's very difficult for most people. Most people aren't trained for novelty, and we'll explore that. So when we do futures work, we always ask ourselves, as you're thinking through something like the fourth industrial revolution, it's a different future, right? So I was doing one workshop in Melbourne, and they asked us to think about the futures of indigenous power, indigenous health. As we did this process, the indigenous people said, we actually just don't want more nurses. We want to change power relations, how people in Melbourne see us. And so it was a very powerful workshop, and at the end, the indigenous people went away very happy with a different way of seeing the future. And the ministerial staff, they said, we're very angry at you. I said, why are you angry at me? We empowered the community so they can make wiser choices. They said, no, you weren't really supposed to change anything. So this is when you do futures thinking first, you actually try to change things. So the ministerial staff got really nervous. And so then, luckily, they asked someone who'd been the Secretary General, like CT here, like Tan Sri, what's the one thing you've learned in 30 years of working in the public service? This is the one thing we learned, is always do futures first. First, think about how the world is changing, then do your strategy. So I'm really appreciative that you folks have created the space to first think about the future first. Then from there, we can decide what's right for Malaysia. Maybe the Western model isn't right. But first, we want to think about the future, and then we'll do interactive. So that's kind of the first lesson. Now, most of you should be well read in this, but in case you're not, it's important to see that there's been waves of change. Agricultural, basically the farm, right? Industrial, the factory. Then the third was very much digitalization. You might say the iPhone. The fourth is promising something else. It's linking the phone with everything we know. So that's why this is important. So it's a working definition. It's not the farm. It's not the factory. It's not the iPhone. It's all of those together. Meaning your horse has an iPhone now. I know that sounds strange, but your horse is wearing a wearable, so you have full information about your horse. Your horse is connected to the farm, to the factory, to the Minister of Agriculture. They're all in conversation every day. Now, you may not want to hear about your horse every day. I mean, I don't. I don't even have a horse. Does anyone have a horse in the room? Just checking. Okay, now most people don't. So we're not in the agricultural revolution, right? But we need to understand the wave here. So this is supposed to be a major shift, and I think the people who argue this are correct. This is not just one more phase in history. This is dramatically different. So the way I'm going to structure this is talk about Industrial Revolution, talk about the future, talk about disruption, and really your work is, what does this mean for Malaysia? Should we do something different? And your answer may be, no, we shouldn't do anything different. Malaysia's fine. So we'll work in groups of 2s, 3s, and 4s to see if we can develop strategy. Now, when you do this type of work, the first thing that occurs is most people don't know how to learn. Now, you're unique. You're all professors, vice chancellors, administrators. Most people, when you give them information about the future, they go to what's called zero-loop learning. So does anyone know any president of the world who does that? Okay, it should be obvious. As you give them more information about climate change, they disagree with you even more. So their response to science is to double down on ignorance. So this is our reality. So then we move to single loop. Just do it. There's so many ideas. Let's choose one thing to do tomorrow. That works when time is stable. When you're in the midst of what's called plastic time, when time in itself is changing, just doing it can be wrong. You could do something very wrong. So this is not just a time to say, we'll do one thing tomorrow. You really have to think through this. And the reason why, as Tan Sri said, labor is no longer a huge asset. We see the term we use, have you been Kodak'd? Has your company been Kodak'd? Has your ministry been Kodak'd? So Kodak had 145,000 employees. You have Instagram, which basically has 30 million customers, 13 employees. You only need 13 people to make a disruption. I was working with the Irish government, with the energy company, and they're the largest provider, one of the largest providers in Europe. I said, why do you want to do this? You're the largest. They said, we know 7 15-year-olds in a city in Europe can destroy our entire business model. We're the largest today. It takes 7 smart kids to destroy our value. We can't be doing what we did yesterday. We have to do something different. At the same time, be skeptical. People are always saying there's a revolution coming, there's a future coming. They can be wrong. Remember George Orwell? Has everyone read 1984? Yes, yeah, you have. Big Brother is watching you. What did Orwell fail to predict? Well, actually, we want to be watched. The Kardashians have made billions of dollars by saying, please watch me. Orwell's point is we're going to be afraid to be watched. They said, no, you got the wrong future. The goal in life is to be watched and to monetize it. So we can be very wrong here. So since we're going to be wrong, this is double loop learning. Double loop learning is the learning to learn. And we want real universities to do that, right? It's just not the data. What don't I know? What's new? How do I challenge my core assumptions? And we have to keep on doing that. Now, more and more what I find works, the story I use is culture eats strategy for breakfast. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. So you could have a great national strategy, a great corporate strategy, but your core culture says we're not interested. I'm working with one country, they want to have better public transport, right? So they got the people together, let's put money in public transport. Then we asked them the story, what's the culture issue? They said, well, actually, we don't want better public transport because most of us have 4 or 5 cars. Who cares about the public? So, but they're still going to pay someone to write a $10 million report on public transport, but their story is each one of us has 4 or 5 cars, only migrants take buses. So why should we care? So the story decides, will Malaysia be successful in its strategy? It's not just on investment or labor or technology, it's the deep cultural story is decisive. And I hope to make that argument more. Meaning we're part of the solution or we're part of the problem. It's not just an objective world, we're seeing this. The lesson for me was I was doing a workshop on rhino poaching in South Africa, and I suddenly realized that's the wrong slide to show. But we make mistakes, right? I learned never show rhino poaching. Anyway, skip that. So why is this culture so important? I was learning with one of the largest energy companies in one country. And so they hired us to write a report on the future of energy, basically on the 4th Industrial Revolution. We did the report, we presented it, then they said, can I stay for the board meeting? I said, sure. As the board meeting started, they went back to business as usual. So I fell asleep in the meeting. And the CEO and the chairman are standing there, why is our speaker, he's fallen asleep? So someone woke me up, and they said, you know, it's kind of rude. You're supposed to be listening to us. I said, why should I? You're doing the same old business as usual. You hired us to tell you something else. You're doing the same. So of course I fell asleep. Sleeping was the rational response. And of course, you know, then the board has slightly irritated me. So then I said, why is it that you're not changing? What's your metaphor? They said, our metaphor is the Queen Elizabeth as a ship. We're a big ship, we don't know how to change. So these new ideas, we pay for the ideas, we don't enact. Malaysia's different. That's why I'm really excited to be here. You folks can make the change. That's what I believe. So then I said, okay, if you're a big ship, you're not going to change. They said, we're not going to change. So I said, but we've come up with 5 new projects. What's the metaphor that will help you change? They said, aha, 5 patrol boats. Patrol Boat 1, increased quality and safety of water. Patrol Boat 2, Uber of energy. Patrol Boat 3, solar energy. So suddenly now the ship doesn't have to change, but they can experiment. Your first forum a month ago, action learning, same idea. So the metaphor is Queen Elizabeth won't change, but we can send out patrol boats that do change. So this became very exciting, and they funded this. 10 million for Boat 1, 20 million for Boat 2. So this is the kind of framework. Now we know in learning, people learn differently. So many of you are visual learners. So let's forget about cognition, let's make the same argument visually. If you go back 40, 50 years ago, this was the main argument about health. More doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. The idea you show Western male, tall expert, smoke. We all smoke, right? The biggest range of 1 billion Asians and Africans will die this century from smoking. 1 billion. Is the largest extinction in human history because Asians adopted a model the West threw away. Then you see a shift. For example, in Melbourne, they're shifting to complementary medicine. Traditional Asian medicine, meditation, things like that. Why? Because it saves money. People who do complementary medicine patients, hospital resource use drops 42%. So if you had a 100 million budget, you save $42 million. So it's pretty radical research saying, yes, Western medicine, but the patient has to change as well. Now here we see this third wave, if you can show the video now. You should have downloaded the video, you click on the video. So this is the next wave I was presenting. And someone in the audience said, nope. Some of the audience says, interesting idea. I just invested in a new company. Please check the company out. And they're doing something very interesting in terms of changing of health. So it should be there. You got it downloaded a few days ago. Press click. No? Okay. So maybe fourth industrial revolution is still a few years ahead. We're almost there, step by step. We're getting to the third, but our, no? No luck? Don't worry about it, let's skip it. Don't get lost in. Okay. So this is what happens at this stage. Most people go to their phones and start to call their friends, right? Check the sports news, who's winning, who's losing. And by the way, you're welcome to use your phone during my talk. What I do, if I can't keep your attention, don't listen to me. But if you bore me, I have my phone ready there too. Okay, so let's go back to where we were. Back to the PowerPoint. No, it's lost. So give me that back. No. So anyway, so the point is, visually, you go from one image, you switch images, and there's a third emerging image which we've also lost. So I mean, I think this is important. So we want to create this new vision for Malaysia education, and we have things that aren't working. No, I mean, this is realistic. So we can't say this is a mistake. This is actually reality. So we definitely want a new vision, but the systems aren't in place. And I think that's okay. So this tells us this is an amazing future for Malaysia, but we're not there yet. So that's honest. And so this is the goal. How do we create the default system so the fourth industrial revolution is possible? The default right now is, in many systems, I have it right with me. So I can do it within 1 second. The old version is there's people in the back of the room that do the technical stuff, right? So if something goes wrong, we look to them. In the fourth industrial revolution, each one of us has the technology. I don't need to look at them. I'm controlling it myself. So we're talking about the fourth industrial, we're still in second industrial, right? I'm the expert, they're doing technical. The third is we're sharing the space. Fourth, it's live, real-time interactive. So we're almost there. And that's not meant a critique of them. This is part of reality. Many conferences this happens. So if I can somehow get the PowerPoint back, even that's difficult. No, that's also difficult? Okay. So let me get my train of thought back. So the visual part is, Tanshri, can I just get the PowerPoint back? Forget the video, forget it. Just go back to the PowerPoint. It's not working, skip it. No, you won't give me the PowerPoint either? So just go, no, forget the video, forget it, cancel it. I don't see it. What's that? Oh, it's stuck. Okay. So check the cricket score. Pakistan won yesterday. That's really important. So the visual argument, okay, let's forget that. So the first point is how we learn influences the future. Most people do zero-loop learning. They don't know how to learn. We want to create a learning culture. That's point one for a new industrial revolution. So learning is more important than the data. Most people don't want to learn. Most prime ministers, presidents, when you present them with science, they say no twice as strong. That's point one. Point two, the nature of change is changing. You went from health 1.0, the expert knows. Health 2.0, you're talking to the expert. The phase, the fourth industrial about health is very different. One, it's personalized. It's your health. You're at the center of the health model. Two, it's predictive. We're developing genomics, proteinomics, so we know your health future. So when you're born, you get a full health map of the next 30 years, 50 years, 100 years. You get your life health map. Three, it's preventive. The health map says, given your genome, you can smoke all day, doesn't matter. Your genome, don't touch cigarettes. So it's going to be a personalized, preventive, predictive map of your health. The fourth industrial point is participatory. That's the key. The old models of health is I go to the doctor tells me I walk away. For example, 2 years ago, I was feeling really tired. Very tired. I had a flu, but I was still tired. I went to my doctor. And the doctor said, Sohail, what can I do for you? I said, I've done the research. Here's my diagnosis. He looked at it. He says, yes, that's pretty good, but you forgot this one website. Go check out that site. I said, okay. I went back, checked the website, came back, and he said, what do you think? I said, I think you're right. I forgot that. He goes, do this one test. Done. Fantastic. Did that make sense? So I'm participating in my own health because we know health futures is powerful when you're part of the issue. Fourth industrial revolution is about we're part of the solution to health, higher education. So this is kind of what we're trying to argue here. So personalized, preventive, predictive, participatory. It's a very different way of seeing things. The same for higher education. Now the other part of futures is, actually, let's stop there for a second. That's been 10 minutes. If you take those 4 Ps, personalized, predictive, prevention, participation, what's an example of that in higher education? So just talk to your colleague next to you. Come up with one example how you can use that for Malaysia higher education. So that's a 30-second exercise. So say hello to the person next to you. If you don't like them, move somewhere else. What's an example of this new type of health for higher education? Take 30 seconds, and we'll choose one person to talk back. So you're talking to someone right now. Don't look at me. Okay, 10 more seconds. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. No, it's okay. I'm glad. It was good. 3 seconds, 2, 1. Let's come back. Who has an example of using 4P health to higher education? Anyone? Anyone with an example they want to share to 200 people who are going to stare at them? Someone has an example? If not, I'll choose you. Please, go ahead. Just use the mic. Any mic? There's a mic right there. If you could run there very quickly. Yeah. Oh, thank you. She's swift of foot.
Well, we were discussing with Yang Bahagia Tan Sri. So we came up with one example to be a holistic student.
Okay, holistic student.
Okay, so while applying this 4P, personalized, because like, of course, as a student, every single student, if you want to survive in the future, you need to have this element of holistic thing. So of course, we're talking about so many different perspectives in terms of holistic, but yet holistic is so significant for the survival of the future. Yeah. And of course, we predicted if you do not have that criteria, definitely, as I said earlier, then they cannot survive, because nowadays academic alone will not going to help you to survive. And now the Minister of Higher Education tried to come up with this ICGPA. That's kind of like a preventive action in order to produce, well, what's the initiative in order to produce a holistic student. And of course, as a whole, all the IPT, public university and private university, even starting from kindergarten, we have to work together in order to produce a holistic student.
Okay, so he's saying 4P means holistic. Anyone else with a different answer? That's not bad, that's pretty good. That's starting the conversation. Anyone else? I'll go to Tan Sri Zul there since I know him. And he's a public health UN guy. So he put you on the spot. That's what you get for showing up. He's my friend from USM days. So what would be the 4P model for education in your vision?
I thought it's self-enlightenment. Basically, the whole issue is that we have got the knowledge.
Yes.
But we have not exploded it.
Okay.
The knowledge system now is all about importing things from outside rather than developing everything that's inside that we have already known for a long time. Okay. Thank you.
So the first point is there a 4P model, Fourth Industrial Revolution model. You figure out what the student needs, personalized. Then you want to predict based on their skill set, here's a life map for the next 20 years. Then you want to prevent, here's things you can do wrong. Here's things you can do right. And then you want them participating in their education, not looking for someone else to solve it. My kids, they're 23, 21, I love them. They're still calling me all the time. Dad, I can't find the hotel number. Dad, I can't find this. I said, you're 23, you know? But so I'm trying to get them to participate. They still believe Dad has the answer. Yeah, so this is so to train students that they have the answer will take a while. If I understand Asian education, the professor knows, student doesn't, right? And sometimes that's true. But we have to rethink that. So the second part of futures is the imagination. When I was in South Africa, this really struck me. If you go to Mandela's prison cell, 1952, he has a dream, right? That he'll be the first black president. Like Malaysia 2020, it was an amazing dream. 1904, and he becomes the prime minister, president. And this was his comment before he died. It always seems impossible until it's done. So this is the whole notion. Fourth Industrial Revolution says the technology is there for the impossible now. The systems aren't there yet. We have to create the systems, and we have to put students back at the center. So that's kind of where we are. So this is three horizons thinking. So this means we have horizon 3 is the vision. So Malaysia by 2027, 2030 is a leader in fourth industrial revolution, right? That may be a vision. I don't know if the minister shares that, but I assume something like that. Horizon 1 is today. Everyone's too busy. As a vice chancellor, you said, oh my God, I have enough revolutions to deal with. Right? Now you want me to do this as well? Because I'm too busy. Horizon 2 is the space of action learning, the space of possibility. This is the unknown space. Will Malaysia lead or will it fall behind? We don't know. This is the space to be created. I try to live in all three spaces at the same time. Here's my vision, here's I'm busy, here's the space of possibility. Today's session is about making this real. Now, if this makes sense, why don't we do this? Why don't we do the vision? Why don't we create different possibilities, right? The 4P for students. Well, here's some reasons. One is we're stupid. I don't mean we in this room. When they interviewed American Republicans, 33% said Aladdin's homeland, Agrabah, should be bombed. Now, in terms of national strategy, why is that a mistake? Anyone? Noor, Azam, why is that a mistake? What's that? There's innocent people. Okay, that's true. But I think it's worse. Agrabah doesn't exist. It's actually, it's not even fake news. It's a movie. So why would you put billions of dollars? They interviewed Americans as well. 6% believe chocolate milk comes from cows that are brown. So you want an industrial revolution, you have citizens who don't know data. So that's the first part, getting the science right. It's worse about the sun goes around the earth. I don't even want to talk about that. Second thing, we don't do systemic. By system, I mean the default setting. So this is in Serbia, where my wife is from. Every year there's flooding. This is what they do. They just put bags around their car. So you see a revolution coming, you just say, well, my university is going to change. The minister's saying, no, we're all going to change, right? This is his term, as I understand it. Third is we don't see the data. You know why? Because most of us live in the second industrial revolution. In this one country I'm working with, they still force the professors to go to work every day. I said, well, you know the research, productivity is higher when you work from home. You want productivity? They say yes. So why do you make people go to work every day? And they said, well, they don't know why. I said, I know why, because you're living in the factory. In the second industrial revolution, showing up means productivity. In the fourth, it's your output. So most of us live in the second, we're entering the fourth, and we're not even at the third yet. That creates the tension. You know, third, we wait until it's too late, right? You have to act when they're young. This is my mother. I taught her the iPad when she was 77. So she Skypes me all the time. She may be Skyping me now. I keep the phone on. But when she's 84 now, it's more difficult. So you have to act soon. You cannot wait till 2030. The timing is now. And this is the big issue here. Our brains are wired for the past. They've done MRI research. They show a group novelty. The part of the brain that lights up is related to the past. So we cannot see the future even if it's in front of our face. The brain is unable to grasp novelty. Thus we make mistakes. Thus, fourth industrial revolution, we'll go back to the second because we're comfortable with it. The brain cannot do it. So you have to retrain the brain. So this is capability development throughout the country. Now there's a model for this. Today's presentation is not about that, but there's hundreds of books, hundreds of lectures on this. Let's skip that. But just those of you who are professors, there's a strong theoretical basis. There's a strong theoretical basis for my statements. But we're not going to talk about that today. So now let's make this real. This has been theory. What are some examples of real disruption in the fourth industrial revolution? Is this real or is this just fake? If you're skeptical, you should be asking that. Is this in fact possible? So this is from a book of mine, and our conclusion is there's 4 principles. Principle 1 is the used future. When you see novelty, you're unable to act because you're acting from the used future. When we show teachers principles about the future of education, you know what happens? We give them computers, they go back to the factory. There's the factory, there's schooling, you bring in computers, they put them in rows. Why would you do that? Digital information is not space-time dependent. So the used future takes over. Again, 100 years ago, they have the professor here, books come in, goes to the brains of the students. The used future is tabula rasa. Students are empty. The used future is not participatory. Students are possible friends on the path. They just need guidance. So when we did this with one government, we changed the story. Principal said they want to be in charge. We changed it to we are learners. The used future stops us from addressing novelty. So this is the Chinese response. in some parts of China. So the future is changing. This is how you manage testing. Instead of saying, wait a second, I've done my test wrong. How do I do a test that includes the students learning? No, let's just make sure they don't cheat. So this is normal. I work very closely with federal police, Interpol, Europol. Our big project globally is around issues of cyber terrorism, normal terrorism. And the thing we keep on saying, the use future for policing is send out the police. The response is actually predictive hotspots. Use funds wisely. So we're trying to move in one country to what's capability policing. Meaning, if we have a new project, who should be the police? They say, well, actually, you 5 are the best. For this week, you're all detectives. But only for 1 week. Next week, we have crime in higher education. You 5 become police people. So we're trying to move the entire country from hierarchy policing to capability policing. And you know why we're doing that? Because organized crime is much smarter. They're faster, they're smarter, they're innovating. The innovation in crime is much quicker than Europol, Interpol, Agipol. So here's your question again in twos. What's the use future in education? Something we're doing, like the factory, like hierarchy, that's not working, but we keep on doing it. That's the first thing we have to challenge. So take 30 seconds again. What's the use future in education? As Ibn Khaldun talked many years ago. You're talking to your colleague now, 30 seconds. So what's something you're doing as a vice chancellor, as a professor, that doesn't work, but you keep on doing it? Because you can't create the 4th industrial revolution if you keep on doing something that doesn't work. That's all there is to it. 30 seconds. Ten seconds. Okay, who has an idea they want to share? Fantastic. Mic for her, please, quickly. Someone run there? No? No one's running there? You need to run. What's an example?
An example would be final exams,
Okay.
Paper and pencil testing for everything. Thank you.
So that doesn't ensure industrial revolution. That doesn't ensure a revolution. It's just testing people on what they know. It makes them good factory workers, not knowledge leaders. Okay. So that's the first thing you're going to change in your university, right? Okay. She's responsible for ending final exams or changing them. Any other use future? Over there, please, sir.
Professors should not be asked to clock in.
Hey, clock in, yeah. Everyone agrees. Their productivity is from outcome. It could be time spent with students, innovative research, funding, something else. Something that you can measure that makes a difference. 2 big ideas. Third one?
The world is very complex. There is no need for faculty.
Okay, that's very radical.
No need for colleges, no need for faculty.
Okay, he's going the next step. You want problem-based learning. You have different experts working together. Wow, okay, he's at the next level. Okay, that's really good. Now, imagine telling the professor of history and the professor of physics to work together. But I think you're on the right track. Our problems are so complex. 4th Industrial Revolution says, bring capabilities together to solve problems. Forget about traditional domains. That's a brilliant point. 3 very important suggestions. The 4th one, we're happy. Last one? Okay. So that's the first thing. Here's what we need to change to make the jump. You can't get here if there's a weight stopping you, right? You've got to let go of the weight. The second idea is, again, you scan the environment. This is a project for a cola company. They want to know, are we on the right path? My report to them and 3 other people who did this report says, no, cola is in fact like tobacco. It's a cancer of the future. Cola sales in Europe, West are dropping. The only place they're rising is in Asia. So cola companies know it's a dead product. Let's just sell it to the other people. So they're trying to move to this 4P model. This company wants to be the largest wellness company in the world by 2035. So they're buying all the health companies. So they're saying the current product, which you folks said, the exam, is dead. Let's create the new one for tomorrow. This is the 4P health. Now, this is something we're also doing with energy. This is a really big one. The old energy model says the government gives you energy. The new one says each household creates energy. So I ran this with the largest energy producer in South Africa. They said, your product is dying because solar and wind is cheaper than coal. They said, yeah, we're finished in 5 years. So who takes over? They said, well, the one that wins out, who creates the Uber of energy. They create energy co-ops. I'm not sure what the Malay word is, the Malayu word is, a cooperative of energy producers. So each kampong has a Tesla battery. They share energy. So when I ran this with this company, anyone know Tenaga, TNB? So I've had their managers every year do this. They said, oh my God, we're in the wrong sector. We have 10 years to totally change our business model. Eventually, Malaysians will produce their own energy. What happens to us? We'll disappear. So phase 1 is selling energy to Asia. Phase 2 is changing the entire model. Fourth Industrial Revolution says each one of you is an energy producer. But if you can't afford the battery, your group has an energy co-op, shares energy with your university, Who wins this game? So by 2027, which is the biggest company then? Is it the energy producer? No. It's the company that creates the platform for energy sharing. Right? So what are energy companies doing now? They're fighting a battle between what the US is saying, no, it's coal. So they're in the second, Trump is the second industrial revolution leader. Right? Maybe first. This is the brutal reality. He's trying to take the US back, and all the scientists are saying, well, actually, the future is here. You create the new platform. What's the role of the university then? To train our students so they create the new platforms. They create energy cooperation, right? Can you do that if you're testing? No. So this is why this is so important. Hopefully Tenaga will help. This is a project for Singapore government. This is, again, 4 years ago, they said, we want to lead in transport. So we got 20 people together, their best engineers. We said, what's the future of transport? They had many ideas. The one idea they liked was driverless cars. So the person from the workshop, he got excited. He went to the minister. The minister said, fine, let's experiment. So Singapore was the first in the world to set up part of their city doing driverless cars. In East Singapore, right, if you've been there. Driverless taxis. Crazy idea, you experiment, you try. So then they said, can you come back? I said, sure. We had a project 6 months ago. What was the #1 idea? 3D printed avionics. Has anyone heard of that before? 3D printed avionics. So Changi has 3D printers running to create spare parts for every airplane. Remember the old model? Something happens to the airplane, you call the engineer, you wait 6 days. This is real time, you create the part right there. So that's fourth industrial revolution. It's personalized for your airplane. It's innovative, it's new 3D printing, and it disrupts everything. Their goal is to be the #1 3D printed energy airport in the world in 7 years. So if you know anyone at KLIA, they should jump on it as well. I mean, you have to beat the Singaporeans, right? That's the game, right? No? Okay, delete. Okay. Bad joke, I apologize. So I'll skip this example, but there's things like that. So again, 30 seconds. What's the number one disruption in Malaysian higher education that changes everything? I gave you examples in energy, in wellness, and in transport and aviation. What's the number one for higher education? Take 30 seconds. Let's have 5 people respond. What's the one idea that changes everything? It doesn't have to be technology. Okay, 10 seconds. If you have an idea, quickly get the mic, yeah? She already has her. She's predicting and already predicting the future. She already got her mic. 2 people, good. So let's come back. Your one big idea that could disrupt the higher education.
Hello. Okay, I'm Dr. Lin from UPNM, Defense University.
Yes.
So for me, it's about network coverage.
Yes.
We should share with all universities.
Okay, so a new university cloud so all information is shared.
Yes.
Okay, that's very powerful. And people can add data to the cloud, yeah?
Yes.
Fantastic. Very big idea. Over here.
Hi, my name is Dr. Emma Muhammad. I'm candidate of CEO at Faculty 2.0 from University Kebangsaan Malaysia. I feel that technologies such as YouTube creates a disruption to our education because young people can just get everything from any other technologies, and what's the relevancy of having a university?
Okay, so she's saying like the Khan Academy, right? By the Bangladeshi Khan, Salman Khan, that disrupts through YouTube. So tell me what that looks like in 2030. I mean, YouTube is interesting, but it's kind of old. So what happens in 10 years? Go ahead, stand up, yeah, please. So in 10 years, what does higher education look like with all the new videos?
Hi, I'm Dr. Husna from UiTM Shalab. Okay, in 2030, the usage of YouTube will be probably used in education to educate students on their subjects and stuff. So we should use it in a more positive way rather than leave it in a negative way.
Fantastic. Right. So their point is the professor is a facilitator, basically the wise Murabi, right? The professor facilitates YouTube videos or for information. Anyone else? 3 very good ideas. 4 and then 5. This mic is right there. Yep, you're on. Go ahead. Mic is there.
My name is Jalaluddin. You see the point raised earlier, but essentially, what will be the role of university? Do we need universities if all can be learned or from YouTube or any other means? So the issue is, if we don't do anything, then maybe we may not have a place.
So he's even going further. The disruption is so deep in Fourth Industrial Revolution, the university disappears. So we're all out of jobs. Okay, so he's not a good guy. No, that's very powerful. Are the factors there, or can universities transform? That's what you're challenging us. Brilliant. Over here?
Yeah, so I'm Dr. Zamir Zulkifli from University Putra Malaysia. So what I think a disruption in higher education is the linearity of study. So no longer, you come in and come out, but it's a lifelong learning that is expected by the students. So I think universities need to adapt to that somehow.
So he's saying right now we're linear, right? 17 to 30, but if you're living to 100, why don't you start at 80? So you want to change linearity. So 4 very powerful ideas. Anyone with anyone else that totally disrupts it, please?
I'm Shuko from University Technology Malaysia. I think we are going towards the direction where university don't know lecturers, don't know professor, don't know curriculum anymore. we are going for open learning where everyone owns the courseware. Anyway.
Very radical as well. Okay, so fourth industrial revolution is about all these things. Shared cloud, challenging university, we own the courseware, and challenging linearity. So for most of us academics, this is very difficult. When my daughter was in high school, she was doing very well except in one subject. And so I called the teacher, I called the principal, I said, what's going on? And I said, oh, can you please come to the high school? I said, sure. So I brought my daughter with me, she was 15, and it said she's doing very badly in business. So I went to meet the business teacher. I said, what is Mariam doing wrong? She goes, well, Mariam will do great, but she has to follow the textbook. She has to read the textbook. And I write textbooks, right? So I said, sure, good idea. So I said, Mariam, will you read the textbook? She looks at me. So we leave the meeting. She said, she'll do great. Tell her to follow the textbook. So we get in our car. I said, Mariam, how was the meeting? And as a teenager, she did this, you know? Exactly, that's her calling. She said, Dad, don't use me as an example. You're in real trouble when we meet. And I said, what's wrong? She goes, Dad, who reads textbooks anymore? I go, well, I do. I even write them. She goes, idiots write textbooks, Dad. So now I'm totally disrupted, right? So I said, sweetheart, how do you learn? She says, we all go to Salman Khan Academy and watch YouTube videos. And all the other teachers let us except her. I'm not a bad student. The teacher's a moron. And she's in the top 1% in the country. So she's not arguing from someone who doesn't know. She had about the highest grades. So this is what's disruptive to all of us. It was very challenging for me. I said, oh my God, I should stop writing textbooks. How do I get into videos? And so we have to learn that. The third big idea is, well, we don't know the future. Will fourth industrial revolution be like this or like this? Let's look scenarios. When we were working with USM with Tan Sri Zul, we said, we don't know the futures of USM. What are some possibilities? So let me give you why this is important. As I've been arguing, things change. When we look at the data for employment, and Tan Sri Noor asked me to do that, she said, well, here's what the data looks like. I don't use data as PowerPoint because that makes people suicidal, but there's a bit of data there. Meaning our training systems don't link to the real world. Jobs will be automated. My accountant called me a few months ago. I said, what's the problem? Is there a tax issue? He said, it's worse than that. I said, worse than a tax issue? What's wrong? He goes, we looked at the data. All accounting in our country disappears in 10 years. He goes, what happens to me? I said, what do you mean? He goes, accountants are going to be destroyed by artificial intelligence. We don't need accountants anymore. So that became his big question. He said, I don't want to be like every other accountant in 2025, bankrupt or unemployed. I have to act in 2015 and redo accounting. So what might that look like? Now the challenge is, it's the end of jobs and young people graduating looking for jobs. So this is our brutal reality. No jobs or very few jobs, young people looking for jobs. So here's our scenarios. Scenario one is no change. We teach and train for jobs that no longer exist. Is there anyone who's doing that at their university and willing to raise their hand? Anyone? Don't worry, the camera won't point at you. Many of them, okay. Minister, so we're teaching and training for jobs that no longer exist because we're not doing prediction, prevention, personalized. So this is the accountant. The accountant told me, if you're teaching accounting in 2017, you're doing your students a disfavor. Because AI will do it or Bombay will do it. It won't be humans. Scenario two is marginal change. This is what Australia is doing. We're going to teach a few courses on coding. We'll teach Asian languages, but we're not going to make a change. So the Australian response to the fourth industrial revolution is basically marginal change. We'll do a little bit because we're too scared. How many are doing marginal change in the room? No one? Okay, so scenario 3 is adaptive. This is the purpose of today's workshop presentation. You teach and train for the 4th Industrial Revolution. You're teaching robotics, bioinformatics, 3D printing, IoT, aging, peer-to-peer. The successful student will have the criteria for how well do you get along with your robot. Like my wife, I love her, but she fights with her iPhone all day. She has a war with her computer and her iPhone all day. You know, she's so angry. She hates Windows, she hates iOS, she hates it all. I said, I'm really sorry, dear, you're not going to survive. Your iPhone, your robot has to be your best friend. Then you can do spiritual work. Scenario 4, now this is, and the research says this is true. The jobs are in critical thinking, digital platforms, all the things you 3 were saying. That's where the jobs are. They're not in factories. This is what the market is saying. Here's what we want. Now, radical change is the most difficult. This is what some of you were saying. No faculties, no universities, no professors. That's maybe 2040. We have to think about that, though. So what happens in the world after jobs? This is your holistic student. You're training for people, planet, purpose, prosperity. Spiritual values, cultural values, prosperity. It's a different type of world. It's after capitalism. I know the minister was asking, what happens if capitalism is disrupted? It's not so far. We're in the middle of it today. So again, in your small groups, now this is the hardest thing. We want a different future, but everyone has to go to work. So David Graeber, he analyzed people at work. Here's what we found. Most American employees work only 15 hours. Rest of the time, they're checking Facebook status. They're going to motivational lectures like this. And they're hanging out, trying to meet someone to get married. That's basically it, which are all nice things. So this is rethinking work. So they're saying healthier organizations are more productive because they work differently. That's very hard for most CEOs. I have a course for CEOs. You know what CEOs tell me? We agree with you theoretically. I said, why don't you do it then? They said, I don't trust my employees. I want to be productive, but I don't trust them. I think they'll go home and sleep. So take one of those scenarios in your small group again, and what does higher education in Malaysia look like in one of these futures? Choose any one. Radical, adaptive, no change, marginal change. So just take a minute and say, if this is the case, these are 4th Industrial Revolution scenarios, what happens to Malaysian HE? So this is now hard work. You have to think, if this is true, in 10 years, what does it look like? Take 1 minute. Choose a scenario, ask yourself, what happens to Malaysia? Okay, 5 seconds. Three, two, one. Who wants to come back with one of the scenarios? The question is, what does it mean for HE, right, in Malaysia? That's our research question. That's what we want to challenge. Anyone? Please, go ahead. Yeah, person in the red tie. Thanks so much.
So I guess this is building on my comment just now about linearity and learning. So what we're thinking is now removing getting a degree. So no more bachelors, no more masters, but instead certificates. So they for a certain need. So they will always when they have a need, they will come to university, get the skills they would need, and then go out and then come in again.
This is pretty much adaptive change. Here's the needs, to be right with you. Here's the needs for the next 10 years. University offers a normal degree, but also maybe a certificate for the need. So the next 10 years, we're going to do bioengineering or 3D printing, and we're going to have degrees in that. Any age. Very clever. Did that make sense? So you have to be very fluid then. Who else was there? Your point? Please go ahead. So that's an example of adaptive change in Malaysia.
I believe in a dream.
Okay,
To
you're here.
believe in a dream, you must have radical change.
Yes.
And we must train our generation to say that poverty shouldn't be in the fourth revolution. So how do we educate our student or whoever in our community that poverty is not a word we ever repeat for the future?
So the real issue
that's
is
radical.
using new technologies, participation to end poverty. So how would you teach that at university? How would you do that?
First, the student must feel what it takes to be poor, to have empathy for the poor.
Okay.
Once we have that empathy, our student, we believe that we should realize their potential in that sense.
So emotional education is first.
Empathy, yes.
So will you have an exam for emotional education? That's a joke. That's a joke.
Yeah. We have example because kids today feel so empowered when they are able to actually help the poor and the needy. That is very strange when you think back. People always think that I should be educated and get a job, get promoted and earn living. But kids today, when we understand them, they feel empowered when they are actually having.
So you would have a certificate of ending poverty as a course or a design for 5 years.
Yes.
Fantastic. Two very good ideas. Anyone else? Anywhere? Please. Mike? Ah, she's good. Yeah.
Hello. So I'm from UPSI. Well, I would love to see Malaysia in the radical change.
Yeah.
It's a bit abrupt, obviously, and it's going to be very challenging, but we are actually moving in that directions. For example, it's like the freedoms of education.
Yes.
You don't have to be 18 or 19 to enter university, but you can be, after high school, you can learn anything you want without any restrictions.
So you want to hear any age can enter?
Yes.
Okay.
Why not?
Okay. So 3 shared idea. Anyone else? Fantastic. 4th, 1, 4, and 5.
Mode of teaching. Instead of lecturers giving students, things to do and teach them, the students come to university and teach us.
So you want the shared pedagogy. Okay. Over here? So you also want radical. So everyone in this room is here. Or the people who like this, they don't want to say anything.
Okay, I got one example for the first column, the no change. So like the belief, like we believe that the only way to survive in the future, we need to have the education. How you're going to get the education, that's another story. But the belief, education is the pillar.
Okay. And you're saying that just continues this.
Yeah, well, no matter what year we're talking about, we still believe that education is the pillar.
Okay. So please, over here.
Okay, I'm Raha. Basically, it's very interesting because if you look at radical changes, you're talking about we do not know what sort of jobs are there in the future.
Yes.
So the students have to be ready, and the government needs to be ready as well.
So you're actually teaching deep flexibility. Since you don't know the future, is capability, flexibility, and that's the core lesson we're trying to work with Europol, Interpol, etc. We don't know how quick organized crime is. Our detectives have to be trained in flexibility and capability. Right now, they're not. So this is a major shift. We need it in policing, we need it in students. And we've seen, we had one workshop many years ago with ACAPT, and they said right now, we're at the force feed. That's no change. That's the education system, force feed. What we want to move is to a nutritious buffet. That's that 4-piece system. When we did this with USM, it was the same idea. What happens if we get an invisible university? The cloud. So you're thinking through alternatives to make better decisions. Now, will those come about? Those of you taking pictures, I've given the PDF, don't worry. You can have it. So this is, before we conclude with the 5 changes, this is what decides what's possible. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. And the reason why I say that is often this is the metaphor people have. Great vision, but the horses are going in different directions. That's why having you in the same room is important. In Pakistan, they asked for funding for a center of excellence in banking. Good idea, right? Center for Knowledge Excellence. Then the person who did the facilitation, he had taken my course, and he asked them a simple question. What's your story about knowledge? He said, well, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So then his conclusion was, your center will get money, but it will do nothing. So the story tells us what's possible. The reason why metaphor is decisive, we know from research on policing. They asked 2 groups of people. They said, here's criminal behavior in your neighborhood. With group 1, they said crime is a beast. Group 2, they said crime is a virus. Then they said, tell us your policy prescription. If you say it's a beast, citizens say, put money in catching, jailing criminals. If you say crime is a virus, put money in education. So the data is the same, the metaphor is different. So you have to use metaphor to create a different future. So we see this throughout the world. In the US, if you say things like welfare, you won't get money. If you say things like help the poor, they'll give you money. So language decides the success of a university. Now I'm going to skip this here. So when you start to make the shift, you have to find a better story. When we were working with librarians, the minister in this country said, librarians are like glorified typists. You're one step below sanitation workers. And libraries will no longer get a budget because it's a waste of time. You should all go to Google. So they got nervous. What happens to the librarian? Their old story was keeper of the collection. So we had to find a new story. Their new story was innovator of the gardens. Should librarians become digital? Should they be 3D printed? Libraries for the poor. Should you rent an expert? When I was working with the South African government, they said, right now, we're a slow elephant. Our science and industry is reactive. We want to be like meerkats, agile, looking to the future. So you find a new story that better tells you where you can go. To give you a real example, this is a roofing company. They were saying roofing disappears as an industry in 7 years. I said, why? They said the entire industry will disappear, it will be unemployment. Anyone teaching these skills is making a mistake. So they said, why? It's, well, roofs keep me dry, it's a single service. The metaphor is the umbrella. Because of 3D printing, new companies and Tesla, which pulls the solar roof over your house, you're finished. So their new metaphor, the roof is a multi-adapter system. The roof drives the home. Roofs provide the services. Your roof is your AI system. Your roof is the cloud. Your roof is your solar system. Your roof organizes everything. If we make the shift, roofing becomes a viable industry in our country. If we don't, we're dead in 5 years. Does that make sense? You find the new story, you create the new strategy. You've all suggested HE is starting to disappear. So we see these people who can make an entire house in a day. The traditional view is it took weeks. Now it takes a day to print your home. Are Malaysian HE students learning how to print homes? Yes or no? You're saying no. So they're part of the second industrial revolution. The fourth is the key skill set is the intellectual property to print your own home in a day. Here is to make roofs that are smart. Now you have to be quick, because what happens if you're slow? The roofing company said, we have 5 years. I said, okay. Tesla 6 months ago said, no, we're doing the entire roof with the infinite warranty. The warranty is forever. The roof does all your solar, so you've disrupted the entire energy industry. So this is how quick it is. So this is why HE has to be transformed. There's a robot now that does all the work that brickies do in a day. You don't need a bricklayer. It's the Hadrian X. It does everything. So we're seeing the new technologies take over. So these are the kind of 4 big issues. So before I do this last part, let me ask you the simple question. What's the metaphor for education in Malaysia today? Higher education. I gave you for roofing, it's an umbrella. They need to go to the adapter system. For librarians, it's keeper of the collection, which get destroyed by Google, right? Google will do a better librarian. They have to change their metaphor. Just take 30 seconds. What's today's metaphor for education for Malaysia, and what's the new one? That will tell me if actually Malaysia can make the jump to the 4th Industrial Revolution, which is our question. The metaphor doesn't have to be in English. It could be in Malay, or Mandarin, or Tamil, German. The current metaphor, the future metaphor. If you're not certain, just Google metaphors for Malaysia. Okay, anyone? Okay, we have someone there. We have 2 people. One over here. There's a mic right behind you.
We always think that we are ivory tower.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're probably just a collection of a data house of knowledge.
Okay, so you want to go from the ivory tower to a data house, a shared data house. That's very powerful. And we're all contributing to the data house in real time. Not bad. Over here?
I would say we're Kodak.
Okay.
We're not doing anything wrong, but we will be obsolete.
Okay.
In no time.
Okay, so we're Kodak.
Thank you.
This is very inspiring. Okay. Okay, now, not so easy. Stand back up. So you've told us the current. In your model, what's the future one? What's the new metaphor? She said data house, which is very cool. What's yours?
I would say it is, well, I'm trying to find the word. It should be a place where we nurture humans, nurture human beings who would do justice to the planet and also people around us. And that should be what a university is.
Okay, so place that nurtures humans to do justice to the planet. So that's a great statement. Anyone have a metaphor for that? If you don't, it's just a nice statement. So try to find a metaphor for that. Anyone else? Over there? 1 and 2. Yeah, you can shout. Okay, that's a statement, but what's the metaphor behind limitless possibilities? What's something that has limitless possibilities? Just, yeah, it's beautiful. So that's a vision statement. What's the metaphor that describes that? Think about that, because this is important. Because metaphorical thinking is different from vision thinking. Metaphors make the possibility. They ensure culture succeeds. Otherwise, strategy fails. 1, 2. 2, 3.
I think the right metaphor for Malaysia future education is we are stars. We guide, we give, enlighten, and
It's
we...
beautiful.
Yeah.
A
we
country
conduct-
of stars.
Yeah.
Who guide, who give light. It's fantastic. Yes. Now, here's the problem with that metaphor. I love it. No, this is, this is hard work. The weakness of stars is they're far away. Right? She wants to be with the students of every age. So maybe we're asteroids or comets coming closer. Isn't that bad? There was someone in the back there? And then someone there?
Hello, I'm Pei from UCT Malaysia Sabah. I would like to say UCT as a playground. So we try to incorporate informal learning with knowledge so the student can learn easier.
That's very powerful. Did everyone get that? It's a factory today becomes a playground where you nurture, you experiment. The role of the government, will be right with you, is to make it safe so you succeed. There's someone there and then someone there, and then we'll go to the next part.
So Jaime, open access.
Okay, closed access to open access. That's very powerful as well.
Yeah.
So 4 or 5 very good ideas. Over here.
Hi, I'm the foreigner here. This is an incredible country full of incredible people doing incredible things. I feel that the system right now, great as it is, let's honor UPM and UM's latest rankings. So it's doing a lot of good things, but it feels like a Bedford truck in the 1950s.
Okay, so
I want to
Bedford
see, which is an English vehicle.
Yeah, yeah.
That's intentionally chosen as that old metaphor.
Yeah.
I want to see this country and this education system be a revved up, super fast MyV.
Not bad.
It's a Malaysian vehicle.
Yeah, I got that. So from a British Bedford truck, which is pollution-based, carbon, all that, internal combustion engine, to a new type of revved-up fast car, going around a playground near some stars. Okay, you get the idea. So let me close on this last part. So the goal is to find a story. Now, to fill this part out with 15 minutes here, this is emerging issues analysis. This is some of the concrete parts of the fourth industrial revolution. The methodology is the S-curve. We focus here because that's what politics does on problems. Today is about focusing on the disruptions. So let me now spell out the 5 waves of change. The reason why I did the earlier 45 minutes, 1 hour, was because it's just not the data, you have to have the ground. Here's an article from 1912 saying climate change, global warming is going to be a problem. So we've had 100 years. So the science is there, can we make the shift? To that, you have to have the culture. The parts of the fourth industrial revolution that are crucial are these 5 parts. So I'll go over pretty quick. This is just so you get a greater sense of it. One is repricing of nature, the end of traditional commodities. So we know there's more jobs in solar and wind than oil and gas. So are you training your students for oil and gas or for renewables? Simple question. There's already a company that no longer uses fresh water. They only use ocean water and solar to create agriculture. It's going to disrupt the entire Arab world, right? It's Sundrop. You only need ocean water, solar, and it grows tomatoes. Dramatic shift. This disrupts the entire agriculture industry throughout the world. It's called super meat. You just take the tissue of a chicken, of a cow, it's halal, you grow it, very few costs, no industry anymore. The first burger cost $325,000, $350,000. It's now $16. Memphis meat is dropping it to $1. So the entire agriculture industry is destroyed in 5-6 years. I presented this to the Australian Farming Federation. I said, what's your response? They said, kill all the vegans. So this is the story, right? Change? No, too scary. I said, what's your second scenario? They said, kill all the scientists. I said, what's your third response? They said, kill all the politicians. I said, so you've killed the Minister of Science, you've killed the scientists, you've killed the vegans. So they can't respond. I'm working with the New Zealand dairy industry now. Same issue. They're seeing the end of traditional milk because of synthetic milk. 2 Indian guys in California have invented this new milk that doesn't need cows. And New Zealand dairy industry, that's their liquid gold. They're worried like anything. So this is the new phase 1. Phase 2 is everyone in the room is a maker. China doesn't manufacture, you don't manufacture, we all manufacture. Every university becomes a 3D maker system. Now you think, well, that's too weird. There were a 10 and 12-year-old, they noticed one of their students didn't have a hand. They went home, spent $25, and they made him a hand. When you were 12-year-old, were you able to make hands? Anyone? That's the 4th Industrial Revolution. You make the disruptive technology. This one kid, he got the dentist wanted $8,000 for his braces. He went online, he did it himself. Now, if you were head of dentistry at the university, what would you do now? It's a real question. Are you training your dental students for what? So this is the one university I used to be with, they're focused on biofabrication. They will lead the world in 3D printing of organs. That's what they think the future is. The third is the rise of AI. We all know it. Personalized, learning on demand, big data driven. It does the things we don't want to do. I was at a conference, and I had my books, right? They said, can you please here sign books? I said, I hate doing that. The guy said, no problem, my robot will do it for you. I go, what? Yeah, he said, just go have lunch. So the robot stayed and sold my books, and I just went for a walk. It was fantastic. I came back, he sold 4 books, not bad. I mean, and the robot didn't ask for a percent. So this is the idea. They do things we don't like to do. So this is the $1 trillion economy, the IoT. Everything is connected. Your horse with agriculture, with you, the buyer-seller. Now, this is the tough part. ILO has already said, I think the data is 90% of all jobs in Southeast Asia will disappear once robotics comes in. Siemens has already left. Nike is saying they're going to go totally to 3D printed shoes. You walk in, it's a personalized shoe just for you. They said they'll save $1 billion. So they'll close factories everywhere and be directly little stores that 3D print them. You don't need factories anymore. Once you go to the Uber of cars, we know it ends, you don't own the car. That fast car you're talking about, it's a shared car. None of us own it, the car moves around. So, so you're basically purchasing a mobility. What happens to KLCC? No more traffic jams. Now, this is disturbing for many of you. I apologize, but it's important. There's a new brothel in Barcelona. Close your ears if you don't like this stuff. It's only robots. It's the first robot brothel in the world. Now, I work with Europol with the child safety. They said, this is great news. We want to end a world of female sex workers. It should only be robots. There's no more sex trafficking. Unfortunately, the prostitutes had a protest. No, they did. It was in Barcelona. Everyone protested. They said, we're protesting the robot sex workers. They're taking our jobs. Now, say you were minister, I mean, forget it. You can imagine the mayor in Barcelona, the issue they have to deal with now. What do you do? So this is the nature of the technology is so disruptive. It used to be the oldest industry. It's not. This industry disappears. Everything goes robotic. I had one person, a CEO, she said, okay, the product is Microsoft virtual glasses with a sex bot. The 4th Industrial Revolution is developing the intellectual property for it. The trillions of dollars is in the robot and the virtual technology and the IP, the cloud sharing. That disrupts everything. Does that make sense? This is why this is such a big wave. It's not a normal shift. There's a guy in Japan, he married his robot. You know, I mean, that's kind of weird. I mean, in China, there's a guy in Japan as well. But this is the nature of the disruption. Now, if you don't like my conversation, there's a robot priest in Germany. No, really, there is. They give you a blessing. So, you know, conferences, someone always does the blessing. They're out of jobs. So this is how quick it is. When you're working with policing, it's far more dangerous. There's biohacking. There's one guy, he's put a camera into his brain. You can see his picture. So this changes the nature of our students quite dramatically. So we're going to blockchain. How many of you use blockchain? Anyone? Blockchain is the first distributed software system that monitors corruption. It can't be hacked. Blockchain is a distributed cloud system. It's multi-ledger. It stops crime dramatically. There's no way to be corrupt if you're using blockchain because the system is safe and secure. So we're trying to move to this for policing. This is AI. It's done the first screenplay. So your AI writes your screenplay. What happens to screenplay writers? There's the first judge and lawyer. There's a lawyer who's now hired by a law firm. There's now a debate, what percent of your corporate board should be AI? The uncomfortable question is, in 2040, what percent of Malaysian VCs are AI? I mean, I don't know. Hopefully none, but we don't know. So this is this debate, how do you regulate AI? Is AI appropriate for Malaysia? In the European Parliament, they're saying robots should be treated as persons. There should be a legal ramification. Now, who does this revolution? I'm almost 60, maybe I won't. It's young children born in the YouTube world. They lead in this. It's normal for them. Now, their metaphor is perhaps not correct. So there's some learning we need to do there, maybe around empathy. There's a professor at computer science. His view is, if you're afraid that you might be replaced by a computer, then you probably should be. So this becomes the big issue of the fourth industrial revolution. Well, if they're being replaced, how do you redistribute knowledge? It's peer-to-peer. It goes from Encyclopedia Britannica. How many in the room still use Encyclopedia Britannica? Yeah, everyone's laughing. I asked some students, they were 14 years old. One person raised his hand and said, "Sir, we've heard of the country." They had not even heard about Britannica. That's the Kodak. They're moving towards Wikipedia, peer-to-peer systems. So an example of this, I was on Facebook, and someone said, Humans of New York, he was in Pakistan. He said, "I want to collect $500 to help this Pakistani worker. They're been a slave now. They'll be a slave for 100 years. I need $500. He earned $2 million in 2 days. $2 million in 2 days. I saw it on the Facebook page. So this is peer-to-peer networks. GE wanted to design part of their aircraft. Instead of going to engineers, they went global outsourcing, what you folks were saying. Who won the award? An 21-year-old student from Indonesia. So meaning the brains to change to make that faster car, the stars, are everywhere. I'm going to skip that, but there's a problem with peer-to-peer. Who thinks I should fly the plane? When I flew here, I didn't want there to be a peer-to-peer discussion of the pilot. So what parts do we need wisdom, expertise? What parts do we share? That's the wise issue. Now, I'm going to skip that part. Now, the implication here is the toughest one. Back to the radical scenario. If this is all true, hypothesis one, the full-time job is finished. It can't be maintained. Any minister, prime minister, leader says, "I will bring more jobs." Well, how will they do that? You see that with Trump. It's impossible. Then we create flexible jobs. Or do we create a job, a career the 4P student who changes in her life. And what are the new jobs? That's what we're here for. Retooling, designing the new story for Malaysia so it creates the new jobs. Now, there's a sadness to this. Have anyone heard about Mary Smith? She was a knocker-up. She blew peas into people's windows to wake them up. Her job was destroyed by the alarm clock. We're in that situation again, but there's alarm clocks everywhere. Eunuchs in imperial China, you know, that was the #1 thing that that families said. They wanted to become eunuchs. Does anyone want their son to be eunuch today? No, it's a horrible idea, right? It's horrible. At one time, it was the desired job. So this is the shift we're seeing. The fourth industrial revolution changes the nature of jobs, so we have to rethink work quite dramatically. Now, one response is this: stop being poor. You're saying no, it's empathy. We want to rethink education so it's based on social justice. So one kind of real response is this. What's called universal basic income. As we move towards new types of jobs, how do we ensure people have safety? The second response is do something outlier. Do something disruptive. When the Pokemon Go came out, she went on Craigslist and said, I can be your Pokemon Go trainer, $20 an hour. How clever is that? So she's thinking ahead. So the new metaphor is very clear. You go from a safety net with holes to basically you bounce on, right? It's a springboard to the stars. So that's changing the entire culture. So now let me ask you why, to conclude with this part, is we're entering galloping time. We had phases of industrial revolution. The fourth is it's all at the same time now. The person I did my PhD on, he said, it's galloping time. Time is changing now. In that sense, our ability to shift is very powerful. When things are moving, right, we can all make the change. So this is kind of one response. There's a tornado coming, he's calmly mowing his lawn. Now we want to do more than that, right? We actually want to make this shift. So I want to ask you before we close is, what's one thing, given these waves of change, that you can do? So let's go back to these changes. The 5 I talked about. First is around energy, the Uber of energy. Second is artificial intelligence. Third is peer-to-peer. What was the fourth? Anyone remember? Yeah, we're all makers. Choose one of these and say, what should be the HE response? Peer-to-peer, artificial intelligence, new manufacturing, and the new energy. What should HE response? Take 30 seconds and we'll close. I'll pass it on. Just choose one of them. The Uber of energy, peer-to-peer, artificial intelligence. Talk to your colleague again. If this is a real wave of change, what should be the HE response? Okay, let's come back. Who has their idea, who wants to share it? Anyone? last bit of your last recommendation. What should be the higher education response to this deep level of fourth industrial revolution, basically, in 4 parts, right? Please.
I think we should be the umbrella that focuses on the human relations that is necessary to enable all these things that you spoke about.
So the Malaysian kind of uniqueness is, yes to all the technologies, we will focus on the human relationship and the human capability. That's what we'll do different. Yes. So it's kind of the human fourth industrial revolution. That's your pitch. It's brilliant. It's very clever. It's one great idea. Anyone else? It's hard to follow that one, but there's 200 very smart people here. And 5 strange ones. We won't say who they are. Okay, go ahead.
I'll give a very specific response rather than a general one. The 11th Malaysia Plan already has a key response to your question, and that is the problem-based learning model of the Aalborg University. It's in there. If universities take a look at that, it picks up on many of the things about reducing examinations and some of these things that are part of the old Bedford model. And we can bring in problems that are industrial, relate to Malaysian companies, ASEAN companies, and build in soft skill development and lifelong learning skills. It's already part of the government's rhetoric.
Okay, so this could be, it's there so we can use it to make a shift. 2 very good ideas. Anyone else? Third one, please.
Now, knowledge is no longer within the university. It's out there. Yeah. YouTube, Khan Academy. Yeah. University should be a place where we teach the people on how to learn. Yeah. Giving the frame in terms of ethics, in terms of humanity. Yeah. The learning is by themselves. Yeah, okay. More of providing those frames.
It's brilliant. So the thing we do is the deep learning. We have domain experts, physics, chemistry, engineering, but we do the deeper part, right? It's very powerful. 3 very powerful ideas, 4, and then 5.
I think I should introduce myself. I'm Rose from IIUM, International Islamic University, Malaysia.
Thanks, Rose.
Moving forward, I believe that the ministry is doing has a lot of initiatives, and I believe that a revolution in leadership is also necessary to enable all these changes. And also moving forward, I believe that we should lift the barriers, or rather the boundaries that we have between education and the industry and the community. Sure. The boundaries have to be lifted, and you cannot have something that is, the word is not coming out, territorial. Yeah. We cannot be territorial. Yeah. So we have got to really work together in a very genuine sense, really work together, and not just on paper and not just metaphorically. Okay. So it has got to happen, and I believe that with this new initiative, one of them is a CEO at Faculty program. Beautiful. This is a very good start for this to happen.
By the way, not just on paper is a metaphor.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
That's the power of the story. So there's 3 castles. You want an ecosystem instead of castles. There was someone behind?
Excuse me, here. Excuse me, here. So,
where were you?
I'm here. Okay, so I'm Adila from UPM, candidate from CEO2 program, faculty program. What I want to touch is a bit how to connect the student in higher education metaphor is from the Malaysia Higher Education Blueprint, where they introduce ICGPA for the student. It is integrated CGPA, and I think from there the student is what we call that is assessed thoroughly.
Okay. Thank you. So it's assessed regularly in a lifelong. How is that different from today?
It's different from today because now we are assessing the students for the examination only.
Got it. I got it. It's full assessment. Fantastic. Thank you. Last point, and I'll pass it to Tan Sri here.
Okay. Assalamualaikum. My name is Nora Shiki from UKM. For me, I think students
students, when they come to university, they should be made aware that they do not come to university to be employed, but rather to create job for themselves. To be self-employed.
The old model in Asia was very much the government will give you the job. You're saying, no, we're here to help you create a job. That's a big shift. Thanks so much. Any other, I think, so that's kind of finishing this part. In terms of evolution, my conclusion is there's certain periods it's survival of the fittest, right? The fit do very well. We fit into the system, we survive. When the nature of the system is being disturbed, it's really the thrival of the exception. Does that make sense? Normal evolution is survival of the fittest. You fit into the landscape. When the landscape in itself is being disturbed, as the fourth industrial revolution promises to be, what makes you different is your exception. So really the goal is to be the exception here, and education is to support that, as you said, to make your own jobs. Thanks so much for your time. I'll pass it on.
Thank you very much, Professor Sohal. Okay, you stay up there. I'm not too sure whether you want to continue with the Q&A session. Maybe the rest might want to have other questions.
We can all go for a walk. We can do what you want. It's up to you.
So, do you want to have Q&A? More Q&As? Yep, okay. Any more questions? Yeah, can you please state your name and also your organization? One second. Okay.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan selamat pagi. I'm Salmia from UiTM. I love your ideas, your presentation, but I have one question. This is about risk management. Have you thought about the risk of embracing this industry revolution 4.0? Because I think nowadays people are looking at risk assessment. And I think there's always two sides of a thing, the good and the bad things. Thank you.
This goes back to your story. If your story is you like caves, stay in the cave. I love caves too. Because you're thinking, what's the risk of staying in the cave versus the risk of going outside, right? And if you leave the cave environment, we're calling the ivory tower, there is a risk. Someone else could do it quicker, faster. People could get disturbed. There's definitely a risk. So you want to do the scenarios. So here are 4 futures for HE within the 4th Industrial Revolution. Then you can make a measured response. But for some people, like our colleague here, she's saying very clearly, the risk to stay in the past is too great because you'll be Kodak. I'd rather take a different risk. So many corporations, they say, please help me reduce risk. That our goal is to enhance possibility. So those are 2 different futures, reduced risk versus enhanced possibility. And it depends on your own risk profile. Remember, it's your own personalized, preventive, participatory. If your risk profile is you don't like risk, don't do this, because it won't work then. It's a nice sofa, though. Does that make sense? I have to put it back on you. What's your risk profile? Do the scenarios, make the strategy.
Yeah.
Okay, hi. I'm Dr. Lin from Defense Universities. So basically, teaching and learning nowadays is quite challenging, where we as an educator have to educate them more than only teach about the syllabus within the course program. But even we are focusing the next 10 and 20 years of education trend in future. But based on DG survey, cyber crime like cyberbullying and else increase among within Malaysian youth. So through social media and social chat 79% reported high encounter of inappropriate language online, and 51% of them admitted to being cyberbullying victim. So, therefore, in your opinion, how we as a future leader should overcome as well as to exercise a positive cyber conduct on this kind of cyber crime or cyberbullying? Thank you. Because everything is open now.
Our work with different intelligence agencies has been very clear. Because this is a new area, Asiapol, Europol, Interpol is always behind. So our response to them is, you should be ahead of cybercrime. So that means you should be creating the cybercrime safety protocols. So they're reactive. Our response is, no, you should be figuring out the next phase. So the same with university. So what are the implications for Maker Revolution if every house in Malaysia has a 3D printer? There's risk to that. But it's going to happen. If every house is producing energy, what's the risk? So the suggestion is here, you're working with safety agencies to produce the safety protocols before. So you're one step ahead of the game instead of being behind. So back to the health model. You're personalized, preventive, instead of waiting for you to get sick. You're taking care of it before. Most policing waits for the sickness, then it acts. Our goal with Interpol is, no, you're ahead of the game. So in your example as well, we're behind the cyberbullying game. We should be ahead. That's why you're doing this. So yes. And that's why your group said what makes Malaysian universities different is the human, compassion, empathy part. That's the core skill.
Suhail.
Where are you? Oh, there. Touch.
Okay. Can I ask two questions? One is, in a society like Malaysia, which is very hierarchical, what are the chances of futures working to be a reality as such? Second question is, what is the difference between your scenario planning, or alternative viewing, compared to the Blue Ocean strategy?
So let me go back to the Queen Elizabeth ship model, right? In that organization, they paid for all these changes. When we started the work, it was too difficult, so they went back to business as usual. So for them, we had to only move the ship a little bit. So once I found the metaphor with Queen Elizabeth, then I said, let's find 5 patrol boats. If the metaphor for hierarchy is the big mountains, right? And the big mountains don't do well when the landscape shifts. They don't like tornadoes. They don't like earthquakes. So what is a strategy that gets me to Horizon 2? A few little changes. If we go too much, what happens? It won't work. We know that. So how do I find what's called Horizon 2 strategy? Horizon 3, which many of you said, right? End of the university, end of faculties, that may be too far. Is there a mid-range strategy we can do? Blue Ocean strategy, from what I've seen, looks pretty interesting. You know, it's about possibility. Our structure is different. It seems, I mean, it's very sympathetic, but we use different methodologies and very much around scenarios plus metaphors.
Can I have 3 more questions?
Muhammad Fuad from USIM. Dr. Suhail, thank you very much for the talk. My question is slightly same what with my chairman who just asked. In your work with many organizations looking into the futures and the changes that they need to do, how will you rate our Malaysian universities here, the public and the private universities, that compared with your experience and in other organizations that you mentioned some of them that the culture doesn't actually fit into the change. What is your rate? What would you rate our chances of change in Malaysia?
There's 2 parts to it. One, we know the ranking issue is the problem, right? So ranking in itself is a problem. So if you keep on ranking yourself within the Western model, you're stuck in their model, right? The blue ocean thing. So you want to shift the game. And that's what, there's a fourth industrial revolution. That's a reality, I think. But within that, what's the new game? So that's part one. Part to it, my personal experience is there's endless brilliance in Malaysia which doesn't get reproduced in systems. So 3 years ago, I remember the Prime Minister's office called me. They said, Singapore has a whole group that advises the Prime Minister there, 15 futurists. I said, yes, I helped set it up. I worked with them. I mean, I didn't help set it up. I trained some of the futurists. They said, can we do that in Malaysia? I said, great. So I gave a talk to all the secretaries, and they were amazing. And they said, okay, we're going to set up something similar but different. I said, great. Then I called 6 months later. I said, how did it go? They said, oh, the director went to a different job. So that means to me there's innovation, there's champions, the ground is perfect, but it's not systemic. Does that make sense? So it's it's changing the default. Like I was in Hawaii recently, and when I was there 20 years ago, everyone smoked everywhere. Does everyone remember that? Every airplane, you couldn't breathe. The default was smoking is the norm. I was in Hawaii this time, the smokers got one little table near the beach, that's it. So there was no, it was a simple thing. You change the default. So your question is the easy answer. You change the default setting from X, the factory, to the playground. And you measure it. I don't think it's difficult. But someone has to change the default. You've done it in smoking. Just change it in terms of this work. It's easy.
Okay,
Yes.
one last question.
Yeah. My name is
Where?
I'm Ahmad from UCSI University. I see this fourth industrial revolution as a rise in artificial stuff, artificial intelligence, robots, synthetic biology.
Yes.
Everything will be synthetic, most of the things.
Yeah.
In fact, China is already taking the lead because they make synthetic rice, synthetic eggs, or whatever. So I think for higher education, we should focus on the human aspects.
Yeah.
The human aspects. And I see one of the biggest challenge in the human aspect is collaboration and sharing.
Yeah.
So we need to nurture our future students to actually embrace these values of collaboration and sharing. Because now one of the biggest obstacles to innovation in the country is lack of collaboration and lack of sharing.
So
but my question is,
yes, yeah.
how do you see Malaysia moving the next step to get the country to embrace the challenges and the threats of the fourth industrial revolution?
Let's go back to the first part. 5 of us, we were professors at universities. We got tired. We said, we'll create our own little university, like the Khan Academy, right? So we got some money. It was fantastic. After 1 year, you know what we realized? We actually realized we hated each other. No, it was an amazing realization. We didn't like each other, so we separated. So we didn't have the emotional skills. Now, for universities, I know the universities I'm at, they say collaborate. If I collaborate with a colleague, my research funding goes down. So this is where collaboration is not just a nice idea, but it's systemically built in. Now, you're saying synthetic. You said synthetic. You're wearing glasses. You're a part robot, right? And you're using a mic.
No, I'm Ahmad Ibrahim, artificial intelligence.
Okay, there you go.
AI.
So this is this whole thing. The goal is to do AI with human values, right? Is not to say no. I mean, everything is synthetic. H2O. So the idea is, how do I use synthetic within your value system? And for that, it's a default change. Now, your last question, I can't answer that. That's the answer to people in this room. If I answer it, that's denying my last presentation. I shouldn't know the answer. Only you know the answer. Right? It's participatory, personalized. You create it. If you ask me, whatever I say, a priori is wrong. So I can't answer that. But I hope you can. Thanks so much.
Well, another one.
But
I
don't get to go.
Houston has a problem now. Houston, because now we are supposed to finish at 12, and it's 11:45. It's 11:40. Are you okay with it? That we continue, or would you like to stop here, Professor Sohail?
Oh, you're looking at me.
Yeah, I'm looking. I'm talking to you, in fact. I can accommodate another 2 questions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then we finish.
Yeah, 2 is perfect.
Yeah, all right. Wait.
I can hear you.
Mic, please.
Okay, my name is Hazman from Malaysian Qualifications Agency. My question is this. All of higher education and education is publicly governed. So what kind of public governance do you think is necessary to ensure or at least accelerate the kind of changes we are talking about heading towards the 4th industrial revolution?
I wish we had stopped a minute ago. What is the appropriate model of public governance for a 4th industrial revolution, right? That's your question, yeah? So it's pretty obvious, right? Part of it still has to be ministry-led. Right? This is a hierarchical country. Part of it must be peer-to-peer led. Part of it has to be student-driven. So just what she said there, you have these different castles, you're making bridges. So it can't be just one sector-led. So the governance model has to be futures-oriented, transparent, some hierarchy, some peer-to-peer. And if you use blockchain to do it, everything is transparent. So this says, yes, we need elite leadership, we need wisdom, yes, we need new technologies, but we need different part of the community who are helping us make decisions. So Barcelona said, okay, we need ideas, let's go to all the global citizens for ideas. But the mayor still has to decide. So that's that mixture between expertise and crowd. Does that make sense? You have to find both.
Okay, one last question.
I'm Noraini Idris from University Pendidikan Sultan Idris. We know that education is a very complex thing, yeah? Because we are dealing with human beings. Human being is very unique. Every different people has different characteristic, belief, vision. So now here, what I've observed from your presentation is a lot of way forwards using digital literacy, AI, and all these things. But somehow or other, we see that in education, people still want human beings touch. Yeah. So my question is, how is your 4th industrial revolution here? We don't want to marry a robot. You know?
I don't.
Okay. So I'm sure what you have shown just now is a case. But what we want here is more harmonious, loving, and the sharing. And we see that now a lot of students do not like to study STEM anymore, science, technology, engineering. So then how do we go forward to bring our higher education in Malaysia in line with the 4th industrial revolution? Thank you.
So let's just go back a bit. The idea one was we're part of a major learning disruption. You can't predict the future per se. You create this deeper double loop learning. Idea 2 was the core of it is personalized, prevention, prediction, participatory. So it's not just the technology, it's your participation in it, and it's based on your person. That person could be your community. Idea 3 is you break the revolution down into 4 parts. Part 1 is the energy disruption. The way to lead the energy disruption is to figure out renewables and create platforms for cooperation. The technology in itself is not the new part, it's the new platform. Idea 2 was artificial intelligence digitalization. The response shouldn't be, I don't like robots. The response is, what % of my teaching can my robot do so I can do human-human? Right? They interviewed students, 6-year-olds. They said, tell us the future. You know what the kids said? They said, we see more robots in the kitchen. That's not deep enough. So then they said, why do you see more robots in the kitchen? You know what the children said? They said, I want to spend more time with mommy and daddy. So the issue was not robotics, the issue was love. So then the response is, how would you do that? Response 1 is you wash the dishes. Response 2 is the robot washes the dishes. So you're using technologies to have greater intimacy. So this is what you want to create. The third part of it, our structures of higher education don't work in this future. Everyone has said it in this room. They're bound to be Kodak. But, as Tan Sri said, we still want some hierarchy. How do we make both happen? You folks are very clear. We need to separate the boundaries between the different castles. Community, business, ivory tower. We need more governance models. We need new ways to cooperate. Everyone said that very clearly. So those are your solutions to the challenge of the fourth industrial revolution. It's not about marrying your robot. It could be around the IP for using robots so people can have greater empathy. But the person who leads that is not just the professor. You're working with students, communities, businesses, working with them to figure out where you're going next. And to do that, then the value risk is, do you want to stay in the old? That could work. Or do you want to experiment in the new? What I'm suggesting here is the nature of time is so quick, it's a greater risk to stay in the old. It's a lower risk to innovate and invent. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Professor Sohal. So, the takeaways that I'm going to read out today from our discussion for our readiness with regard to fourth industrial revolution, and from the points that you have presented today. One is on change. We have to be prepared for change, and this is where AI, Professor Ahmad Ibrahim mentioned about resilience and also collaboration, and also partnership should be established in order for us to have change. And this also entails us having empowered the young generation. That's the takeaway number one. Takeaway number two is the ecosystem itself, whereby we are looking at whether to have systemic change or is it piecemeal change. This is again, we have to look into the ecosystem with regard to your quadrant just now, personalized, predict, preventive, and also participative. So again, we have to prepare in that context with the Ministry of Higher Education if we were to change or rather to adopt fourth industrial revolution. And the third one is with regard to relevance. Kodak is nice. I love the word Kodak. So, in other words, if we are to be relevant, we need to be adaptive to disruptive technologies, and also that entails us to be more creative and innovative because we have AI, BDA, IoT, blockchain, and so forth and so forth. And the fourth one is humanizing fourth industrial revolution, being mentioned by Datuk Norani just now. This is a nice part of the fourth industrial revolution because it was really not discussed here today. And this is where we can look at empathy, we can look at values, ethics, soul, and because everything is automotive, this is where human plays a huge role in ensuring that we exist in this world. And finally, as I look at it, we have to look at policymakers. And with onslaught of the fourth industrial revolution, for example, it means speed, fluidity, knowledgeable in terms of making policies of the nation. And we cannot be singing Que Sera Sera by Doris Day, which says that what will be, will be. The future is not ours. Come, sing Que Sera Sera. So Ladies and gentlemen, it's galloping time. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Professor. Thank you very much, Professor. It has been very enlightening indeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tan Sri Dr. Nurul Ainur and Prof. Sohail. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big round of applause for that very insightful presentation. And now, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Ministry of Higher Education Torchbearer, Yang Berhormat Datuk Sri Idris Jusuf, the Minister himself.
Thank you very much as well. Very enlightening. We need to move. Things are changing. I hope the KSN is going to be with us in the changes. Of course, it may not be as radical as what you have said. It's got to be kind of adaptive, in the middle, kind of thing, even though we would like to be more radical in our change. We have been quite radical in the sense that we shifted from CGPA to ICGPA. We have been very collaborative with the industry, with CO, faculty 2.0, they're all here. But perhaps we have to move further. No more faculties. Are we ready for it? Are the VCs here ready for it? One of them? Who's ready for it? One. I see more hands. VCs, I'm VCs. I'm not talking about you, I'm talking to VCs. I have one hand up, two hands, three. I'm only 3 out of 20. Not bad. 3 out of 20, not bad. No more faculties. We have probably talked about, just now I said Huta Goji, which is student-directed learning. And you said peer-to-peer, pedagogy. You learn from your peers rather than just from your lecturer who's teaching what they learned 20 years ago. And of course, things are moving. But hearing what you have said, things have changed much more. It's no more linear. It is exponential. So we have to move faster. Tan Sri Kesu, move faster. So not too many instructions, because there's too many instructions, got to be audits. And you are all afraid of KSN's instruction on audits. I see some of the VCs here. The structure needs to change. Perhaps the framework that we have is still the old framework. I used to say to the cabinet, can we go flexi with our officers? I didn't see anything from KSN, from the Prime Minister. What perhaps if we have been tasked in a way, when the Prime Minister talked in the cabinet about moving, about 4th Industrial Revolution, once our paper is ready, which our translator is looking at it, I'll go to the cabinet, sir, do you really want 4th Industrial Revolution or what is it that you want? I'll say that to him. I'm not afraid of him anymore. Not too sure, sorry. Said, if you want, we have to say that if you really want 4th Industrial Revolution, we have to do what is needed. As I said, things are so fast. And I don't have the answer, actually. And not many people really have an answer what 4th Industrial Revolution is all about. But they know it's going to be it's a big change coming to us, and we have to be ready for it. We work on it. Perhaps I'll give you 3 months to work on it, or 2 months now. All this time frame. Probably, probably we call you again before we wrap up, Perhaps, I see, this is the biggest crowd we have had so far. So thank you for all of you. So we move forward. We make sure that we change. We have to make sure that we are ahead without losing the human touch. Thank you very much, Suhail. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dato' Sri. Ladies and gentlemen, as a token of appreciation to our panelists, I would like to invite Yang Berhormat Dato' Sri Idris Jussof, accompanied by Dato' Dr. Mary Yap Keng Ching and Yang Berbahagia Datin Paduka Insinyur Dr. Siti Hamisah Tafsir to present a mementos. Let's give a big round of applause to Professor Suhail Inayatullah. And next to our very smashing looking moderator, Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Dr. Nurul Ainar. And Yang Berhormat Dato' Sri, Professor Suhail would like to present his book entitled What Work? Case Studies in the Practice of Foresight to Your Good Self. And also to Yang Berhormat Dato' Dr. Mary Yap Keng Ching. And to Yang Berbahagia Datin Paduka Insinyur Dr. Siti Hamisah Tafsir. Thank you. Let's take a group photo. Yang Berhormat Dato' Sri with our very brilliant panelists, I must say. One soaring hours, Dato' Sri. Ladies and gentlemen, with the presentation of the mementos and photo session just now, that's end our session today. We would like to thank everyone for your time today. And with that, my name is Ratna Mokhtar from International Relations Division. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. See you soon.